Welcome to THE 1000, Introduction to Theater with Bobby Bell. Writing about the theater, Part 3. Now that we understand Aristotle's method, and we have a common play, or rather cartoon, to discuss, let us examine our two elements of focus, character and plot. The protagonist is the pivotal character of a drama. The protagonist is highly motivated and wants something that has vital consequences at stake. The protagonist's drive is extraordinary, and he or she will go to almost any lengths to achieve his or her goals. The protagonist is the driving force of the plot and creates conflict. It might be useful to think of the beginning of a play as a state of stasis or balance. The protagonist is the chief character that upsets the way things are, initiates change, or creates chaos, or changes the status quo. The antagonist is also a highly motivated character who will go to great lengths to get what he or she wants. The difference is that the antagonist's goals are diametrically opposed to the protagonist. The antagonist is the chief character opposed to the actions of the protagonist. The antagonist creates the crisis of the play. It might be useful to think of the antagonist as the character who does not want change, who wants to maintain the status quo, who wants the play to return to the same or similar balance that it had at the point of attack. Good plays have what is called a unity of opposites. This means that the protagonist and antagonist are well enough matched so the outcome of the plot is enough in doubt to create crisis and interest. The two central characters of any drama are the protagonist and the antagonist. As you look at the main characters in our little play, Clark Kent/Superman, Lois Lane, Managing Editor White, the Mad Scientist, and the Vulture, you'll want to determine who, in your opinion, are the protagonist and the antagonist. There can be a difference of opinion when it comes to these two characters, and those differences will color an individual's interpretation of the play. The important thing is not so much having the right answer, but rather how good of a case you can make for your choice. For the purposes of our discussion, we have chosen Superman, disguised as Clark Kent, as our protagonist, although a good case could also be made for the Mad Scientist. Superman is a powerful alien being who comes to an Earth filled with crime and destruction and wages a never-ending battle for truth and justice. For our antagonist, we have chosen the Mad Scientist, who is opposed to Superman's vision of truth and justice and wishes to maintain the world of crime, chaos, and destruction. It is the clash of these two characters that create the materials, the actions and events out of which a plot is made. A plot can be subdivided into smaller parts. The first part is the point of attack. This is simply the incident where the playwright chooses to begin the plot. The playwright may choose an event in the past and go in chronological order, or the playwright may choose an event in the future and have flashbacks. The playwright may choose a late point of attack or an early one. In this instance, it is an early one that begins long ago on the planet Krypton. Shortly after the point of attack, most plots contain exposition. Exposition are parts of the story you will need to know to follow the plot. So we find out about Superman's father sending him to Earth before Krypton exploded. We find out that he grew up in an orphanage and developed superpowers. We also find out that to use these superpowers effectively, he must maintain a disguise as the mild-mannered Clark Kent. The inciting incident is the first action that the protagonist takes that sets the action of the plot in motion. In our little play, after the mad scientist decides to attack at midnight, Clark Kent agrees to go in disguise to check things out and hopefully to put a stop to the scheme. The inciting incident then creates the major dramatic question in the minds of the audience. Will our protagonist Superman defeat the mad scientist and restore truth and justice? If things were easy for the protagonist, plots would be very boring, and so plots have complications and obstacles that get in the way of the protagonist pursuing his or her objectives. In our case, Lois Lane goes off on her own, leaving Clark Kent behind in his disguise. That becomes a further complication when Lois is captured and taken hostage. Now the mad scientist attacks, and Superman must not only stop him, but do so without harming Lois Lane. Protagonists then have discoveries or new strategies to overcome complications. The discovery that helps Superman overcome the current obstacle is an empty stockroom where Clark Kent can change into Superman completely unnoticed. Lucky for him. Another complication crops up when the mad scientist directs his ray at the newspaper building, destroying its foundation and causing it to topple. The discovery and strategy around this is that Superman pushes the building upright and then straightens it out. He then flies down and blocks the ray. The mad scientist, however, creates another complication by increasing the power of the ray. Superman has a discovery that he can punch the ray and defeat it. The mad scientist finally creates the greatest obstacle by increasing the ray to full power. Superman's strategy for getting around this obstacle is to tie the barrel of the ray gun into a knot. This forces the ray to backfire, destroying the mad scientist's lair. Now we come to the climax or turning point, the highest point of plot tension, when the major dramatic question gets answered. Superman rescues Lois Lane and captures the mad scientist. All plots will have loose ends, and a good playwright will tie them up in the last section of a plot called the denouement, French for unraveling the knot. This is where we find out about minor characters we may still be wondering about, and any other plot lines that require resolution. So we find out that the misguided vulture manages to escape, hopefully to lead a better life away from the bad influence of the mad scientist. We find out that the mad scientist gets locked up in jail by Superman. We find that Lois writes a front-page story about the incident. We find Editor White congratulating Lois on her great solo scoop, while Lois crushes on Superman. And finally, we get the Clark Kent denouement as he winks knowingly at us. So to review, every plot has the following parts: the point of attack, exposition, the inciting incident which creates the major dramatic question, then a series of complications, obstacles that are overcome by discoveries and strategies, with building dramatic tension until the climax or turning point, with loose ends tied up in the denouement. Later in the term, this is the process you will follow when writing guided essays about selected play scripts.